I'm sorry, I was on mute too. That's great. Sorry, guys, I was on mute. My computer restarted right before I was going to go live, so I had to make sure I was in the right live. Then I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and I'm on mute. But I am in the right live. I hope you guys had a good day. I have to apologize for last night. I was tired, I guess. I don't know what the heck. I had said I was going to go more into the story of Austin Metcalf, the teenager, the 17-year-old who was stabbed to death at a track meet. And then I don't know what happened, and then realized after I had signed off that I never went in depth in that. So I will do that tonight because I don't do clickbait. So I will do that. But tonight we're also going to talk about the Bryan Kohberger Pre-Trial Hearing. We're going to be talking about Lori Vallow. She is acting as her own attorney. She's representing herself. You know what they say, you have a fool as a client, right? If you're doing that, she's definitely not doing a Daryl Brooks yet. She's doing better than I think a lot of people expected. And we'll see what happens there. And then we have a New Jersey woman, and I believe we touched on this before, but she was charged with a murder for hire plot about her ex-boyfriend, a police officer, so killing him and his daughter. So we're going to talk about that. And then a soccer coach in California who has been charged with killing a 13-year-old who was found on the side of the road and was last seen coming from this coach's house. And then you never know what else comes up. And I will talk about the track stabbing. And I'm really sorry that I didn't finish up with, do that. So let's lead in with that. I think we'll lead in with that. So it was very horrific and tragic, and there were long interviews with Austin's mother, father, and identical twin brother. And it was Frisco, Texas, and there was a lot of disinformation that was spread out there that the parents said, stop spreading disinformation out there because it's just wrong. So we're not going to be spreading disinformation. This channel's about facts. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was a student athlete at Memorial High School. He was killed Wednesday during a university interscholastic league track and field event. And Megan Metcalf, the mother of Austin, said, "My son is not here anymore and I don't understand it." Okay, so there's so much disinformation going on online and it's hurting their case. It has to stop. Now we know, okay, Austin Metcalf and the person that's been charged with stabbing him to death, Carmelo Anthony, did not know each other. Okay, so there was a lot of misinformation. That's what happens with the internet, and people were going to town with a whole bunch of crap being said about like this whole situation. That's not what happened. The Frisco Police Department and the FBI are investigating fake social media posts posing as Chief David Shilson. So people were posing as the chief of police and putting out misinformation. Frisco Police Department said in a statement that a bogus account was posing as Chief Shilson and spreading information that was false or misleading. So the Frisco Police Department encourages the public to only rely on its verified department profiles across social media platforms. And then his father, I watched a long interview with the father, and it was very heart-wrenching. But It was just, they were under tents in this track meet, and this other teen did not belong there, and just, said, this for us or whatever, and that was it. And he just turned around, got a knife, and stabbed Austin Metcalf. And Hunter is the identical twin brother. So let's see what's happened since then now. Okay, so the family of this 17-year-old who's charged with the murder said they are sincerely saddened over the death. And that was their first public statement since the incident. It happened on April 2nd at that Frisco Independent School District Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Austin Metcalf, 17, an 11th grader at Frisco Memorial High School, died after police say another student stabbed him during an altercation. I see they're saying the bleachers. In the interviews I heard, it was tense. There was a lot of misinformation. They also said in the beginning that they were 16. Now here they're saying that he's an 11th grader, and I thought the mother said that they were 17 going to be 18 in July and that they were seniors. I'm not sure, okay? But Carmelo Anthony is a student at Frisco Centennial High School. He's been charged with first-degree murder. His family retained Dallas-Fort Worth area defense attorneys Billy Clark of the Clark Law Firm and Kim Cole of K. Cole Law in the case. Carmelo and the entire Anthony family are sincerely saddened that a life was lost and offer their condolences to the family of Austin Metcalf. During this difficult time, we urge the public to refrain from rushing to judgment before all the facts and evidence are presented. Okay, so, yeah, why did he stab someone? Okay, yeah, all the facts can be presented, but their son drew a knife and stabbed another student in the chest and killed him. So, yeah, a rush to judgment. Yeah. Just doesn't make any sense. Austin Metcalf's mother, Megan, said, "Just because the kid was mad, my son is not here anymore, and I don't understand it." Frisco Police Chief David Shilson called the incident a senseless act of violence in a lengthy statement last week, while offering his deepest condolences to all the families involved, especially the Metcalf family. He also warned that false information relating to the stabbing was being circulated on social media, and to trust only information that comes through official releases and verified sources. And there was a fake account that was created that was spreading misinformation. Okay, let's see here. So they're saying that the 17-year-old who's accused of fatally stabbing the Texas track meet warned Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." That's according to a police report that's provided new details about the tent-side, I am correct on that, tent-side dispute. Authorities have charged Carmelo Anthony, student athlete from Frisco Centennial High School, with murder after he allegedly stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco. So two different schools in Frisco. When you have a track meet, it's just like someone said, it's like a baseball game. You're not in the dugout with you're not, you're the other team. You're not sitting there in the dugout with another team. When you're at a track meet, you're not in the tent. And apparently they said, you're in our tent, and this is not for your school, and that's what happened, allegedly, right? An arrest report sheds new light on the pre-stabbing clash. Metcalf reportedly told Anthony that he needed to move out of the Memorial High School's team's tent, and it said that Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and said, "Touch me and see what happens." Austin stood up and pushed him to get out of the tent, and in the next moment, he reached into the bag, took out a knife, and stabbed Austin in the chest. Witnesses told the officer that Anthony deserted the scene following the stabbing, and Metcalf, 17, died in his twin brother's arms. Officer noted that twin brother Hunter was hysterical at the scene as authorities talked to witnesses about the tent confrontation. So here is the actual report from the police. So let's see. Let's take a look right at this, right? Factual stuff is what... Okay, let's take a look. Let me pull this over. There's the suspect. The initial narrative, it says that Staley School Resource Officer E. Cortez heard over the radio dispatch call out a stabbing call at David Q. Kindle Stadium. The FPD call notes indicated that an athlete was stabbed. The suspect was reported as being a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. I immediately left my office and ran across the Staley Middle School parking lot towards the southwest entrance into the stadium. As I entered the stadium, 2 high school age students informed me that the victim was on the north end of the stadium by the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent. I did not identify these students. Next, I proceeded towards the north end of the stadium visitor side on foot. As I got closer to the north end, I could see the Memorial High School tent with multiple individuals under the tent. Okay. Let's see here. Once I arrived onto the north side bleachers, an adult male who was on the track pointed out the suspect. I was not able to identify that witness. The individual that was pointed out to me was a black male wearing a gray hooded sweater and dark colored Nike pants. The suspect at this point was on the track on the north end. There was a chain link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, "I was protecting myself." It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons, and he said no. I patted him down for weapons. While we were walking along the fence, I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence, which he complied, towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said he put his hands on me. I then detained the suspect in handcuffs, handcuffed behind his back, had him sit down on the ground. Officer Ricci had arrived on scene at that time. I conducted another pat down of his person and then searched his person after he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. The suspect then responds and says, "I'm not alleged. I did it." Next, Officer Ricci and I walked the suspect to the patrol vehicle, number 2412. This is Officer A. Ricci's patrol vehicle, which was on the northeast gate of the stadium. As we walked to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said he put his hands on me, or he put his hands on me. I told him not to. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. I searched his person once again, and I had him sit on the back seat area, driver's side of patrol vehicle 2412. While the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw the blood out loud so that it would be captured on my body-worn camera. It should also be noted that the suspect asked me, "Is he going to be okay?" while he was in the back seat. I then identified the suspect. He provided his name and date of birth verbally as Carmelo Anthony, with a date of birth which is redacted, which I ran through the FPD dispatch. Officer J. Hancock arrived on scene and remained with me and the suspect at this point. Carmelo was then checked via a e-school database for FISD students to also confirm his identity. The identifying information he provided matched the individual I had in custody, Carmelo Anthony. Next, I was advised by Sergeant Holland to transport the subject to the Frisco PD jail. Officer Hancock and I transported him to the Frisco PD jail. Again, I did not question Carmelo about the incident. Okay. Upon arriving at the Frisco jail, Carmelo was escorted in the intake area. FPD jail staff changed him out into jail attire. I remained with the jail staff the entire time that he was changed over. The clothes that Carmelo was wearing were placed in an FPD paper evidence bag. The clothes remained in my possession from this point on. Upon Carmelo being placed into a jail cell, I continued to keep possession of his clothes. I returned to my patrol 2412 along with Officer Hancock, which was in the FPD Sally Port, and placed Carmelo's clothes in the back trunk area. I drove the patrol vehicle 2412 out of the Sally Port, parked the squad car in the FPD patrol parking area. Carmelo's clothes remained in the trunk area of vehicle 2412. FPD crime scene technician K. Dillard then took possession of Carmelo's clothes. I added my body-worn camera to the case. I have no further information to report. Now the supplemental. On April 2nd, 2025, 10:01 hours, Officer Ricci was wearing a full Frisco police uniform, and I was operating a fully marked Frisco police vehicle 2412 at about around that time. I was dispatched to a report of a stabbing at the stadium, the David Q. Kindle Stadium. Frisco Police Dispatch advised an athlete had been stabbed. The suspect was described as a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and blue sweatpants. I responded code 3 from the area of El Dorado Parkway and Frisco Street. I arrived on scene approximately 10:05 hours, 4 minutes later. When I arrived on scene, I approached the track and field area and saw Officer Cortez kneeling next to a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and blue sweatpants. The male, later identified as Carmelo Anthony, was in handcuffs and was seated on the sidewalk by the entrance to the track. As I approached Officer Cortez stated Anthony was the alleged suspect. Anthony then made a spontaneous statement and stated, "I am not alleged. I did it." Officer Cortez conducted a pat search of Anthony's person to ensure Anthony did not have any weapons and found nothing of evidentiary value. Officer Cortez and I then walked Anthony to my pre-searched patrol vehicle, and Anthony was seated in the rear driver's side compartment of my patrol vehicle. While walking to my patrol vehicle, Anthony made another spontaneous statement and asked if what happened could be considered self-defense. I replied by telling Anthony I did not know what happened. It should be noted, the in-car camera in my patrol vehicle was activated prior to Anthony being placed in my patrol vehicle. While Officer Cortez assisted Anthony into my patrol vehicle, I noticed Anthony had blood on his left middle finger. I grabbed my department-issued digital camera and took a photograph of Anthony's hands. I later uploaded the photograph to the crime scene folder under this case number. Officer Cortez remained with my patrol vehicle and Anthony while I provided assistance with scene security. Nothing further from this officer. Okay, and this is from Officer Will Otis. On Wednesday, April 2nd, at around 10:01 hours, Frisco Police Department officers were dispatched to Frisco Independent School District, David Kuykendall Stadium, in reference to a stabbing victim call. Frisco Police Department Emergency Communications was receiving an emergency call regarding an athlete that was stabbed. The original unknown assailant was a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants and also had a goatee and short hair. The suspect was possibly wearing a Centennial attire as it was believed. He was a student there for this sporting event. This had all taken place on the visitors' side of the stadium, north side, and the victim was under the Memorial High School memorial tent in the bleachers. At around this time, School Resource Officer Cortez arrived on scene and began assisting the victim, trainers, and other parties. Officer Cortez also advised on the radio that he had also had the suspect. Sergeant Otis was working the 50s sector as the sergeant. He was in full Frisco Police Department uniform with district patches and a badge and a police duty belt. He was also in a marked Frisco Police Department patrol vehicle 2315. He was relatively close to the call, placed himself on it at around 10:02 hours, and responded to the call with the patrol vehicle overhead, emergency lights and sirens activated. He arrived to the call at 10:06 hours. Sergeant Otis arrived to the stadium and began walking up to the location. At around this time, Officer Cortez and Officer Ricci were walking a black male suspect, away from the stadium. The suspect was crying hysterically. Police see the other involved officers' narratives for their involvement. Sergeant Otis walked up to the visitors' bleachers and observed the victim being treated by Frisco Fire Department personnel and also the athletic trainers. The weather began to turn and it began to heavily downpour rain. At this time, some of the Frisco staff moved the memorial tent to cover the victim, and the Frisco Fire Department personnel, Sergeant Otis, began using his city-issued phone to snap crime scene photos to preserve as much of the scene as possible due to the weather and the large gathering of people that were involved in the incident. Other officers began to set up a crime scene with tape, moving non-essential personnel out of the immediate area. The officers on scene were informed that the knife that was used was tossed and was still believed to be somewhere close. Eventually, one of the witnesses say they remember seeing it on the bleachers still. Officer Schals was able to locate the knife. It was located between rows 9 and 10 and near seat 30, closest to the aisle, partially open. The rain began to come down again heavily, and it was determined that instead of moving the knife, the officers would cover it with a large blue tarp. Sergeant Otis assisted in preserving the immediate crime scene as much as possible, while the other personnel tended to the victim and eventually transported him. At around this time, Officer Wetzel had the crime scene log and began logging The individuals on the call, to the best of his abilities, Lieutenant Crawford and Pemberton, relieved Sergeant Otis of this scene. Sergeant Otis went back to the police department to download the body cam and the photos he took with the city-issued phone. Sergeant Otis's city-issued phone had a total of 33 photos that were used to document the incident scene. During the download, the initial photos formatting were incompatible with the crime scene folder. He re-downloaded the photos that he took, and they were able to be saved properly for preservation of evidence. At this time, there is nothing further to add to this report. And then this is from Officer Wetzel Taylor. Again, the same date, April 2nd. Officer Wetzel was assigned to work patrol in the city of Frisco at approximately 10:02 hours. I responded to the report of a stabbing at the David Q. Kendall Stadium, located at, where it is. The original call notes stated an athlete had been stabbed in the chest and that the suspect that stabbed the victim goes to Centennial High School. Athletic trainers were on site and were providing care to the victim and advised he was not conscious and not breathing. The notes also indicated that the suspect was a black male with a goatee and short hair wearing Centennial gear. I arrived on scene at approximately 10:06 hours. When I arrived on scene, I grabbed a roll of crime scene tape from my trunk and I proceeded to the visitors' bleachers where dispatch advised the victim was. While I was walking towards the visitors' bleachers, I was approached by a witness who identified himself as something and began telling me what happened. I asked him where the stabbing occurred. He advised it happened under the Memorial High School pop-up tent in the visitors' bleachers. I immediately informed Sergeant Otis where the witness stated the stabbing occurred and gave him the crime scene tape to start securing the crime scene. I then had redacted moved to the walkway under the visitors' bleachers out of the rain to further speak with me. Following is a summary of my contact with this witness, who advised he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with his team and was near the victim, Austin, and the suspect, who was later identified as Carmelo Anthony. Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under the team's tent and that Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in the bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony. And then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what the witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. The witness advised he did not know Anthony's name, but stated another Memorial Track member was friends with Anthony, and he could identify Anthony. The witness described Anthony as a black male, skinny, with a possible goatee, short puffy hair, and wearing a Centennial High School clothing. This concluded my contact with that witness. I then was instructed to start a crime scene log. I retrieved a crime scene log from my patrol vehicle and began starting the crime scene log. I was later relieved by Officer Schals, who took over the crime scene log, and I cleared the scene. Nothing further attached to original report. Okay, so then next is Jerry Hancock, an officer, and says while working as the school resource officer at Independence High School, a weapons call was dispatched over the air that detailed the stabbing occurred at Q. Kendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas. After hearing more dispatched call information, I drove to the scene, and while en route, I heard Officer Cortez say he had the suspect in custody. When I got to the scene, I looked for Officer Cortez and went straight to him to hold security with the suspect that he had cuffed and secured in the police squad. Multiple witnesses were providing statements to officers where the stabbing occurred at the Memorial High School track tent. Only a short time later, Officer Cortez and myself escorted the suspect, Carmelo Sincere Anthony, to the Frisco Adult Holding Facility. Anthony was transitioned off to the jail staff without incident. All jail paperwork was completed, and CID took the investigation from there. Okay, then we have Alvin Fisher, another officer. He was dispatched to the stadium in regards to the stabbing. And notes stated that an athlete had been stabbed in the chest, was unconscious and not breathing. When I arrived, the crime scene was already marked off, and the suspect was in custody. I began asking people if they were witness to anything. I made contact with Hunter, this is the twin brother, and then two other, one other redacted. They were both breathing heavily and crying due to the nature of events. They were with coaches on the field, and it was pouring down rain. We made the decision to relocate to a locker room just to the east to get out of the rain, and once in there, things calmed up a little bit. However, they were still hysterical and could not really talk. In there, I learned Hunter was the brother of the victim. I attempted to ask them both what had happened. I could not really get anything out of Hunter, but the other person stated he wanted to speak. I asked him what happened, and he stated they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent when another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. Then that person then said Austin, the victim, told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin said the male went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. The witness had said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag that he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. This was all the person remembered when he talked to me. After this, I then stood by with 3 athlete witnesses until CID arrived and interviewed them. I was then relieved by the school resource officer and went back to patrol, nothing further. Mike Crawford got the call, was dispatched to the Kuykendall Stadium at 10 o'clock. Let's see, in reference to the stabbing call, I arrived on scene and observed medical personnel and several bystanders standing next to a subject later identified as the victim, Austin. The medical personnel were actively engaged in life-saving measures with the victim. I observed that a crime scene was created around the area and began collecting the names and contact information of the bystanders within the scene. I then met with Officer Wetzel and directed him to begin a crime scene log. As he was getting the needed paperwork, I took over his responsibilities of monitoring a witness to the event. Ultimately, the witness was taken to another area out of the rain, and Officer Schau's took over the crime scene log, and I forwarded information about the bystanders to him. From that point forward, I worked with coordinating response from the school resource officer, CID, CSI, and PIO. I took no other action at the scene. My body-worn camera did not activate when I initially arrived on scene, but I did activate it when I discovered it wasn't recording while waiting with the witness. Nothing further. Then Jacob Schals said Officer Schals was working as school resource officer at the Student Opportunity Center. At approximately 10:01, I was dispatched to a stabbing that occurred at the stadium. Upon my arrival, I tried to get an updated location of the suspect. I could not see Officer Cortez when I arrived. Officer Cortez informed over the radio that he had the suspect in custody. At this time, I turned my attention to the victim. Multiple FISD trainers were already performing CPR. I could see blood on and around the victim. At this time, medics arrived and began life-saving measures. I coordinated with other officers on scene to secure the location. By this time, the students and the FISD staff had cleared the area. I used crime scene tape and began to tape off the area. It began to rain harder at this time. Sergeant Otis and myself moved a Memorial High School tent over the medics and victim to attempt to preserve any evidence that we could. A Memorial coach approached me and informed me that he was with a student who claimed to see the entire altercation. I told the coach to stick with this student and that we would need to get him to the police station to give a statement. The student quickly informed me that he knew where the suspect threw the knife and pointed me to its location. I located the knife with Sergeant Otis, and I could see blood on the knife. I quickly used my city-issued phone to take pictures before the rain could wash the blood away. Sergeant Otis located a blue tarp, and we decided that we should cover the knife without touching it in an attempt to preserve any evidence. It was windy and raining hard, and once we positioned the tarp over the knife, I reached down and grabbed a backpack left in the stands to weigh the tarp down and threw it up by where Sergeant Otis was positioning the tarp. It was later discovered that the backpack I threw up on the tarp was the suspect's backpack. It was the only Centennial High School backpack located within all of the Memorial High School backpacks in the area of the stands. After securing the scene with crime scene tape and attempting to preserve as much evidence as possible, I assisted other officers with locating other possible witnesses. Officer Wetzel was maintaining scene security while I was assisting the other officers after the medics transported the victim. I relieved him of that post so he could go back on patrol. I maintained scene security until the call was cleared. Photos will be uploaded to the crime scene folder, and my body-worn cam will be downloaded at the end of the shift. No further information at this time. So, you're hearing all the different officers, and you're not hearing what was going around. That was misinformation, right? Kyle Pemberton, another officer, said that call notes advised a male had been stabbed and was unconscious. Upon arrival, several officers and medical personnel were attending to the victim, who was lying on the ground on the stadium bleachers. I coordinated the Frisco Police Department response, trying to establish a crime scene. The knife reported to have been used in the assault was located by another officer in the bleachers. Shortly after my arrival, a large downpour of rain began. I directed several officers to use a tarp found at the scene to cover the location of the knife, and I remained on scene until the victim was transported and the crime scene was established. Officer Justin Newton responded to the Texas Health Plano to assist with the case, and I was tasked with meeting the ambulance at the hospital. I arrived prior to the ambulance and waited for them to arrive. They arrived at 10:46 hours with the victim, Austin Metcalf, who was brought into the trauma bay for treatment. At 10:53 hours, Dr. Cheo pronounced Austin deceased. Once he was pronounced, staff stopped treatment and disconnected cords and tubes from the machines without removing anything from the body itself. While on scene, I took possession of clothing worn by Austin and maintained possession of the items until CSI Dillard took them from me. While on scene, Officer Landon requested assistance in lifting the sheets off the body to take photos. I then placed the sheets back when complete. I then stood by in the room for security while Officer Landon, Officer Hernandez, and CSI Dillard took additional photos. At one point, they rolled the body and removed shorts from Austin, which were bagged, and stayed in my custody until CSI took them. At 13:24 hours, family was allowed into the scene to view the body. I was informed by staff and officers that they would be allowed to touch the head and feet of Austin, which they did. At 13:37 hours, nurses from the hospital bagged Austin in a body bag. At 15:15 hours, the transport service for the medical examiner arrived and took possession of the body. A tag was placed on the bag and secured. I took notes during this time, which were scanned to the report and booked as evidence. I turned in the crime scene log to be scanned to the report. At the conclusion of the call, I took my camera off of convert mode and went to turn it off. At this point, I learned the camera had failed to activate due to it being on covert mode. I did not see the indicator lights on the top of the camera. Great, his camera wasn't working. Officer Andrew Higgins. Officer Higgins was working as the desk officer. At approximately 10:42 hours, Redacted walked into the main lobby stating that he had witnessed the stabbing and was told to come to the lobby to complete a witness statement. I gave them a voluntary witness statement, which he worked on until detectives arrived to speak with him. He left with detectives and I returned to my normal duties. Nothing further at this time. Craig Thomas, officer. At approximately 10:01 hours, reporting officer T. Craig was at Heritage High School and heard that an FISD student had been stabbed. I immediately responded to the scene. Upon arrival, I made contact with Officer Cortez, who was standing next to a marked police vehicle. Officer Cortez advised me he detained the suspect and he was in the patrol vehicle. I then responded to the victim's scene that was in the north bleachers. As I walked up, I noticed Frisco Fire Department personnel was attempting to provide life-saving measures to a suspect later identified as Memorial High School, Austin Metcalf. As other officers worked the scene, I was asked to respond to the stadium's medical locker room and keep the following Memorial High School students, witnesses, separated until detectives could speak with them. While with them, I was told to take their cell phones from them and later turn them over to Sergeant Bissonette. After being relieved, I was asked to make contact with all the FISD athletes that had been placed on school buses. Below is a list of students who identified themselves as witnesses to the stabbing of Austin Metcalf. And they're all listed there. I was also met by the following coaches who advised they witnessed the incident, and it lists the coaches, okay? And then another officer responded to the stabbing and assisted with keeping civilians away, okay? And then another one, Miller Joshua. Upon arrival, my only duty was to provide scene security. So there that is. And so you heard like all the crazy misinformation that was spread. All right. So, yeah. Now here, the top photo there is Megan and her son Hunter, then of course the brothers, and then the one of Austin. Hunter Metcalf spoke Wednesday alongside his grieving mother. He recalled the moment he saw his brother with a wound to his chest. He said, "I whipped my head around, and then all of a sudden, I see him running down the bleachers, just grabbing his chest. I put my hand on there, trying to make the bleeding stop. I grabbed his head, and I looked in his eyes, and I just saw his soul leave, and it took my soul too," Hunter said. "The narrative being spread is false, unjust, and harmful," said the Anthony family in a statement on a crowdfunding platform. "As a family of faith, we are deeply grateful for all of your support during this trying period. Your prayers and assistance mean more to us now more than ever." So there's a fund for Carmelo Anthony to help his family and his legal defense. He's in the Collin County Jail on $1 million bail. I think it says it was about $150,000. No, this is the father and son there.
Hey there, Brenda.
It's Carol.
Exactly. So which leg are we operating on?
You mean arm?
Okay, let's see here now. Yeah, these ads that come up. Let's see. Some of the comments here says, under no circumstances should a high school athlete bring a knife to a track meet. Possession alone should get you suspended, of course, from an event if caught. The fact that it was used to commit a murder at the event is unconscionable. Someone said even if he was pushed, assuming that is accurate, there's no justification for what happened after that. No further explanation needed. Pulling the knife after making a threat was an escalation of the squabble into a deadly confrontation. This is not exactly an example of self-defense. Is a knife allowed on school grounds? The kid clearly has a canceled weapon concealed. They say, okay. This is an unbelievably senseless tragedy. And as the interview states, the world has become callous to it. Look at the mass shootings, and they seem to be everyday occurrences. See what happens. That statement proves it's not self-defense. He planned to use the knife as an offensive weapon based on that statement. He was not in an area open to the general public. He came armed and he threatened someone who told him to leave. That is premeditation. Sounds like he may have been there to see if there was something that he could do there. We don't know that, at least not yet, but further investigation can determine if that's the case. Self-defense would only apply if it were in fact self-defense. Anthony went into the other team's tent with a weapon stashed in his bag with an intent to use it. He specifically sought out an altercation and was looking for a reason to teach someone a lesson. Okay, let's see. I'm no lawyer, but aside from Mr. Anthony inappropriately bringing a knife to an athletic competition, a glaring error on his part was his wildly disproportionate reaction, even if he was being pushed out of a competitor's tent. Given the totality of the reported event, it's a giant stretch to consider Mr. Anthony either fearing for or was actually in any danger of losing his life. Further, his attackers evidently had no weapons. 17-year-olds may be immature, but most would know this set of circumstances would not require the murderous response it elicited. Someone said, isn't a high school track facility a school? No weapon zone? It's very obvious that these school officials failed to deter this murderer from carrying a deadly weapon onto school property. Perhaps the local jurisdiction needs to pass a plethora of new laws dealing with weapons in school zones so as to protect the innocent. Let's see here. Someone said, how is this self-defense lethal force on an unarmed opponent just because he put his hands on him? He didn't have to use a knife. The fact that he even had it there sounds like premeditation. He shouldn't have even been there. Sounds like he was looking for trouble. Okay, There's someone saying some stuff here that I don't know how to verify that, so I'm not going to say that. Let's see here. His life was not in jeopardy, and he knew he wasn't in the right tent. He could have walked away without incident and informed an adult. He had that knife, knowing he was going to use it, and had it placed for easy access. Someone said, I think it's absolutely obscene that this suspect's family is defending him and has even started a fund for people in the public to support him. The family has the all too typical view that their little darling isn't what their little darling has shown himself to be. The victim's family should try to get a legal hold of any money collected for the murderer, a murderer by his own admission, so they can sue for it. Okay, I don't know about Mr. Anthony was in a place that he knew his presence alone would be provocation. Anthony's intent was to do exactly what he did, self-defense, more like premeditation. Somehow a knife ended up in his hand at a track meet? Yeah, right, clearly he was looking for trouble. Let's see here. Someone said this self-defense is going to be incredibly difficult to defend as 1, he brought a weapon onto school property, 2, he wasn't a participating athlete, 3, he was sitting in an area that was restricted for specific athletes. In my opinion, this was premeditated. He went out of his way to start a conflict, then used deadly force. Can't claim self-defense if he is trespassing in an area that he was not supposed to be in, or that he was asked to leave and remained after forbidden. Or more importantly, the other guy was unarmed and did not attack him. Okay. Why did Anthony have a knife in his backpack? Why did Anthony intentionally sit in the opponent's tent? It was not a mistake. Why are people supporting him? He has admitted he stabbed Austin and immediately asked if it could be self-defense. Lastly, how is a push an action that requires a deadly response? Someone said one of my sons ran cross country and track throughout high school. He mentioned when we were talking about this case that it was a constant problem that student age persons not associated with their team would come under their tent. It quickly became apparent that they were most often there to steal from the book bags. They had to post tent monitors to keep non-team members out. Carmelo had no business being under the tent, and his sense of entitlement when he was told to leave because no one knew him is revealing. If you go to concealed carry classes, you learn that you cannot provoke a fight, draw your concealed weapon, and kill the person you provoked. It is not self-defense at that point. That is exactly what Anthony did. So Carmelo was asked to leave, but instead of leaving, he threatened Austin and subsequently carried out that threat. Doesn't look good for Carmelo. He could have just left as he was asked to do. Someone said it's pretty known that you do not go into or under another high school team's tent in either competitive or high school events. You just don't do it. In fact, it would be bizarre for a person from another school or even a parent to the opposing school to do so. So that part of this equation makes no sense at all. Why was this kid under the opposing team's tent? Secondly, can you imagine having your son stabbed to death and find out that strangers unaware of the details donated 200 grand to the very person who killed your son? Shameful. Someone said this was a premeditated act. To take any sort of weapon onto school grounds is against the law. What amazes me is everyone donating to the criminal and not the victim. This is messed up. Someone said this isn't about race. It's about two high school boys. The fact that one of them was killed at a high school competition where weapons are not allowed is the problem. I hate that people donate to this. One family will need to bury their son and the other child will sit in jail, while the next time you see the parents, they will have new clothes, mom will have a new something. Okay, doesn't matter skin color. They need to withhold their funds until after the trial. He invaded the opposing team's tent, and when he didn't leave after being told to, got pushed. That does not warrant killing someone. This should be a clear-cut death penalty, quick trial and sentencing. Death penalty, period. Sorry, this is still murder, even if Austin pushed him to get him out of the tent. Technically, that could be considered assault, but it doesn't rise to the level of reasonably fearing for your life. No juror will rule this case of self-defense. First, Carmelo knew he was in the rival team's tent and shouldn't be there. He also knew this was the basis for why Austin pushed him. It was to get him out. Pushing him to direct him out of the tent is much different than throwing a punch or attacking Carmelo with the intent to do great physical harm to him. Sorry, but Carmelo doesn't have a case. Someone said something doesn't add up. There's more to this than we're being told. Why would this kid have a knife in his track bag? Why so insistent on sitting in another team's tent? Criminal intent, premeditated murder. This kid knew what he was doing. He went to where he didn't belong with a weapon, where he knew he would face conflict. Being shoved is not a life-threatening event, but he premeditated a false narrative of self-defense. Showing this kid mercy will only fuel his lifelong commitment of bad choices and crime. So there's a GoFundMe for the perp that stabbed Austin Metcalf. Everything is upside down today. Go figure. It's not a GoFundMe, I believe. It's a different give, send, or something or other. Someone said, touch me and see what happens. This one little phrase will doom his self-defense claim. Someone said, why would anyone in their right mind donate money for a fund to defend someone who committed this crime? The murderer was in a place he was not supposed to be, an opposing team's tent, and he was asked to leave. So his natural reaction is to kill someone, and that's what you're advocating and giving up your money for? Someone said the donors likely believe there's more to the story than's been made public, or they want to ensure he gets a fair trial, which is every citizen's right, innocent until proven guilty. Another one says apparently there was a fake social media page set up pretending to be the chief of police and was posting untrue statements about Carmelo. The FBI is investigating. The family says they need the money and prayers to support Carmelo in his time of need. They should be praying for the family that just had their child stabbed to death. Let's see. Why was the knife brought to that school? Weapons are not allowed in schools, people. Young man is going to prison for a long time. This was not a random meeting. No, that's a lie. They didn't know each other. See, there's more misinformation here. Let's see here. Sad error in judgment that will change his life. Being pushed out of that place that he shouldn't be in the first place is no reason for him to sentence his opponent to the death penalty. Hard life here on out. Let's see. If the killer is found guilty, the victim's family should sue for wrongful death. After all, they have 150. I think the Metcalf family should file a civil suit against this kid so that they get the money. The guy intentionally went to that track meet armed with a knife, and then he knowingly sat in the other team's area. Evidently, he was wearing some piece of clothing that indicated he was on the opposing team or a fan of the opposing team and should not have been in the area he was seated in. When confronted, he gets combative and reaches for the knife, and he stabs the other guy, and the assailant starts pleading self-defense. Sounds like this guy went looking for trouble and had planned what he was doing in advance. Whether this was a racial issue or something else is irrelevant. The act was intentional and planned. Touch me and see what happens, not the words of an innocent kid defending himself. Someone said that fund needs to be shut down. This wasn't self-defense. It was simply murder. Why did this kid even have a knife on him? R.I.P. Austin. Justice for Austin. They didn't use GoFundMe. It was the crowdfunding platform Give, Send, Go. Okay. Somebody said absolutely unreal that people are contributing to this fund for someone that admitted stabbing someone to death. Civilization continues to decline. A verbal confrontation, a push, if there was one, is in no way or by any stretch of the imagination cause for a fatal stabbing. Anthony was just waiting to use that knife to show how tough he thought he was. This was intentional, and Anthony knew he was going to do what he was going to do, just waiting for his moment. He needs to be charged as an adult and given an adult sentence. The bottom line is he murdered someone for no reason. Even if he was pushed, the response and force used was not justified. He will spend many years in prison. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's exactly what it, to say I agree with. I don't know what happened to my YouTube now. Let's get over here on my YouTube because I don't know where it went. It's horrific. I mean, that poor family, the poor brother, the completely senseless, completely, utterly senseless. And I totally agree. It doesn't matter if he was pushed or whatever. He was in the wrong tent. He was asked to leave. That taking a knife that should never have been brought on the school grounds. And that reaction is unbelievable, right? Hold on, I have to get to... Totally unbelievable. Okay, let's see. see what you guys are saying. If you are saying anything in the chat, let's see what you're saying about this. Oh, hi, Little Lady. Hi, Christine. One of them dying in the arms is unimaginable due to another's lack of control. Terrible. Hi, Furley Farmhouse. Let's see here. Why did Carmelo have a knife on him? He shouldn't have had one on him. White Angel is in a school. That's not allowed, right? It's unacceptable to utilize that much force against another student for no reason for that. You just got home from shopping, you parked in the underground, and you're just sitting in your vehicle listening. You're so exhausted. You did too much shopping. What kind of shopping? Groceries? Okay. Hi, Pokeroo. Schools need to start enforcing the fact that living amongst others in a society is a privilege, not a right. And if you're going to do stupid things, then you're going to be taken out of society and put in jail. Your birthday is Saturday, 57 years young. Better than the alternative. Oh yeah, hey there. Happy birthday, early birthday. You may pop in, pouring love, okay. You agree, it's premeditated when they're looking for trouble. Got what he was looking for, found it as a result. The kid is dead. Yeah, terrible. Hi, Justina. Hi, little lady. Yeah, so, what a tragedy. What a tragedy. Completely senseless. Completely senseless. Unbelievable. I don't understand the raising of the money for that kid. I don't understand what was it because the false narrative was spread, or are there people wanting to get their money back now that they're finding out that's not the truth? I don't know what's going on with that. But let's talk about Kohberger now, another person that allegedly thought he could end 4 lives because, for whatever reason. So they're going to have a pre-trial hearing tomorrow, right? And let's see, they're going to argue prosecution and defense. They're going to have probably a 2-day hearing. It's going to start tomorrow morning. And Kohberger, in case you've been living under a rock, that's Bryan Kohberger that you see on your screen. He's 30 years old, and he's accused of the stabbing murder of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonsalves. They were in an off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. It happened November 13th of 2022. Kohberger was a criminal justice graduate student at Washington State University. He was arrested in Pennsylvania weeks after the murders, and his DNA was matched to genetic material recovered from a knife sheath that was found at the crime scene. Okay, so attorneys on both sides have filed hundreds of pages of legal motions, including whether Kohberger should face the death penalty if he's convicted, whether witnesses should be allowed to testify about things like touch DNA, and about who should be allowed in the courtroom during the trial. We went over many of these motions here a few weeks ago. The hearing will give the attorneys a chance to make their case in person, discussing the legal reasoning behind these motions that they've made. And it's going to allow Judge Stephen Hippler to ask questions and weigh in on, weigh their arguments. The defense has asked the judge to find that an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis would make Bryan Kohberger ineligible for the death penalty. And they're also going to probably argue over whether jurors should hear an audio of a 911 call made by two women in the house roughly 8 hours after the murders, as one of them realized their roommate was not responsive, was not waking up. Now, they also are going to show that the prosecution wants to bring in evidence about Amazon and what Bryan Kohberger was looking at on the Amazon account, and that he purchased a K-bar fixed blade knife 8 months before the murders, and it was a K-bar sheath that was found next to one of the victims. Bryan Kohberger's attorneys have asked the judge not to allow any of that online shopping history in, saying it could be taken out of context or not reflect the influence of algorithms that recommended purchases. Prosecutors also want to bring in a photo that Bryan Kohberger took of himself hours after the murders, and that's the one you see when he's in the bathroom, and it's a bizarre looking photo, and they say it shows what he looked like at that time, and they're talking about these bushy eyebrows, right? Because these bushy eyebrows are what the roommate identified. Defense attorneys want the judge to bar any testimony about bushy eyebrows. They say it could prejudice the jury against him. And the judge can make a ruling from the bench, or he could tell them that he's going to wait and then issue a ruling after the hearing's over and issue a written ruling. Because in a case like this, that's probably what he's going to do, because, this is a case that could be a death penalty case, and something they're going to want to make sure that everything is done to the letter, right? Jury selection in this trial is due to begin on July 30th, and the trial is due to start August 11th of 2025. And remember, that seemed a long time off, and now it seems like it's right around the corner. And that's going to take place in the Ada County Courthouse in downtown Boise. It's expected to take nearly 3 months to complete. Now, speaking of very long trials, guess what? Do you know what? The Monica Simmonelli trial. I want to just talk for a minute on that because it was monumental today. Do you know what was so monumental? That the closing arguments are over. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So we had the rebuttal, and finally that's over at 9 o'clock in the morning, not Eastern time, of course, Pacific time. The judge is going to give the jury the instructions, and that means this will go to the jury tomorrow. I think it's an absolute. This case, oh my gosh, this case has so many firsts for me. First of all, the length of the opening statements, the closing arguments, the rebuttal are like nothing I've ever seen. Usually the judge will put a limit on it, and it's very highly regulated. I mean, some people are just like, okay, they don't even get to finish. this was just unbelievable. The opening and closing statements from the prosecution, I think they took 3 days each. And even the defense was long-winded. But the opening statements just basically laid out every single aspect of this trial. It was like she almost tried the case in the opening statements and then recapped everything in the closing arguments. It's just crazy. Was it overkill for the jury? Were they zoning out? Quite possibly. But it still doesn't faze me. I think Monica is going to be found guilty. Without a doubt, I'm going to do a poll. I think the jury will be back tomorrow. But maybe they'll take an extra day. Who knows? But I have no doubt, no doubt she's going to be found guilty. But I'm going to take a poll right now anyway. Let me just do that. Let's see. Okay, so I'll put that down. We'll see what happens. But yeah, not a doubt for me. Absolutely not a doubt. So that's Monica Simmonelli. Now, we did Bryan. We did what I owed you from last night with the track meets. Now we're going to talk about the soccer coach who's charged with murder in California. Okay. I want to get a graphic up here because I need to. Okay, so prosecutors added an additional charge for an alleged 2022 case a day after filing a first-degree murder charge in the death of 13-year-old Oscar Omar Hernandez. The soccer coach is in jail on suspicion of murdering the 13-year-old. He was charged Tuesday with that additional count for an alleged SA attack on a teen in 2022. Mario Edgardo Garcia Aquino, 43 years old, was set to make an initial appearance in court Tuesday in downtown Los Angeles. He was charged on Monday with first-degree murder for the death of Oscar, who was reportedly missing March 30th after his parents said he went to visit Garcia Aquino in the Antelope Valley. Garcia Aquino was initially arrested last week on an unrelated SA case from 2024 in which Garcia Aquino allegedly attacked a 16-year-old at a home in Lancaster. The 2022 case, which was investigated but never previously charged, involves an alleged essay on a 14 to 15-year-old that police say took place at Garcia Aquino's former residence in Silmar, sorry. In an interview Monday, Oscar Hernandez's family wondered if the teenager would still be alive if the authorities had not waited until last week to bring those criminal charges in the 2024 essay case. The LA County District Attorney's Office said Tuesday that the 2022 case was presented to prosecutors in August of 2023 and said at the time the case needed additional forensic testing. Once all of the testing was complete and we received the final results, and after the pre-filing interview with the victim, our office initiated the filing process on April 7th, 2025, said the DA's office in the statement. They issued this statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and it said, and I quote, "This was an avoidable crime and the result of failed border policies," said United States Attorney Bill Esali. "We cannot and will not tolerate illegal aliens who flout our nation's immigration laws that prey on children. Federal law enforcement will continue to be very aggressive in locating, apprehending, and prosecuting criminal illegal aliens." And that was in response to questions about Garcia Aquino's immigration status. Law enforcement officials said they received numerous calls from the public after requesting information at a news conference Monday on unreported incidents involving the coach. Okay, then I have to see what we said here. So what did I have? Oh yes, New Jersey murder for hires is next. I believe we talked about this case a while ago. All right. Camden County. So let me just get her picture up here, okay? She looks so smug in her mug shot here. Okay, so a New Jersey woman's accused of going on the dating app Tinder. What was she looking for? The love of her life? No. No, not at all. She was looking for someone that would allow himself to be hired to kill her ex-boyfriend, a Philadelphia police officer, and his teenage daughter. Yeah. So the New Jersey woman is accused of trying to hire this man that she met on Tinder to do this. Camden County Prosecutor's Office, according to the affidavit of probable cause, detail these allegations that are against 26-year-old Jacqueline Diorio. Jacqueline offered a man that she recently met on Tinder $12,000 if he would kill her ex, a Philadelphia police officer, and also his daughter. Diorio faces attempted murder charges. The South Jersey woman is accused of hiring this man to do just that and trying to pay a confidential informant about $12,000 to kill her ex-boyfriend, who's in his 50s, and his 19-year-old daughter. Okay, so let's take a look at the press release here in this case. Gloucester Township, New Jersey, a Runnymede woman has been arrested and charged in a murder for hire plot to kill a Philadelphia Police Department officer and his daughter, reported Camden County Prosecutor Grace C. McCauley and Gloucester Township Police Chief David Harkins. Jacqueline Diorio, 26, was charged on April 4th of 2025 with 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder, 1 count of first-degree conspiracy to commit murder, and 1 count of third-degree possession of a controlled dangerous substance. On April 3rd, the Camden County Prosecutor's Office Major Crimes Unit was informed of a murder-for-hire plot involving Diorio. The defendant had communicated to a confidential informant that she wanted to have her ex-boyfriend, a 53-year-old officer with the Philadelphia Police Department, and his 19-year-old daughter killed. Diorio offered to pay the informant approximately $12,000 to kill both victims. Right? That's, that's great. On April 4th, Diorio met with the informant on the 1300 block of North Black Horse Pike in Gloucester Township. She provided the informant with $500 in cash, and after the money was exchanged, Diorio was taken into custody by the Gloucester Township Police Department Special Response Team. Diorio was found to be in possession of a bottle of suspected alprazolam pills. Diorio was remanded to the Camden County Correctional Facility pending a detention hearing on April 9th in Superior Court. Camden County Prosecutor's Office Major Crimes Unit and Gloucester Township Police Department were also assisted in this investigation by the U.S. Marshals Service, New York, New Jersey Regional Fugitive Task Force Camden Division. Now, this is so crazy because I am either having serious deja vu because I remember this case before, but this is a new case. I remember clearly it was a woman trying to have an ex and his daughter killed. I remember that as clear as day, and I believe it was also a New Jersey case. Just nuts. But these, let me see here. According to the probable cause affidavit, they met on March 31st, 2025 at a Runnymede, New Jersey Wawa. And a Wawa is like a big, giant gas station that also has a store and like you can get food and all kinds of stuff inside. And from March 31st to April 3rd, the two exchanged several phone calls and text messages. I'm going to have to look it up because I know 100% that unless I really am having serious deja vu, that there was a case very similar to this. During the conversations, Diorio told the informant that she wished her ex dead. On April 3rd, the county prosecutor's Major Crimes Unit was made aware of the murder-for-hire plot. Okay, and investigators said they interviewed the Philly officer on April 4th and that he confirmed that a selfie photo that Diorio shared with the informant was of Diorio, his ex-girlfriend. The Philly officer said he and Diorio met because she was his barber. Philly officer told New Jersey detectives that he and Diorio broke up on March 6th of 2025. Over the summer of 2024, Diorio had filed a temporary restraining order against the officer, but that was later dropped. The Philly officer told New Jersey investigators that his home was vandalized by a Molotov cocktail in September of 2022. On April 4th, the informant told detectives about his conversations over the previous week with Diorio. The informant advised that Diorio had been adamant about killing her ex-boyfriend. Diorio offered the man $12,000 to kill not just her ex, but also his 19-year-old daughter. She said she would pay the man $500 up front and the rest of the money in installments. On the evening of April 4th, Diorio and the informant planned to meet up at the Dollar General on Black Horse Pike in Glendora to give him the down payment money for the murders. At about 6:45 p.m., the informant got into Diorio's white Honda Civic in the Dollar General parking lot. That's all in the probable cause statement. Once inside the car, Diorio demanded to see the informant's driver's license, and then she gave him the $500. Gloucester Township Police then arrested her. During the arrest, Diorio was found to have a bottle of alprazolam pills on her with the label ripped off. Diorio was charged with 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, and third-degree drug possession. She was jailed ahead of the April 9th hearing. It was unclear if the 26-year-old woman had an attorney who could comment on her behalf. Anyone with information is asked to contact Detective Ryan Durham of the Camden County Prosecutor's Office, Major Crimes Unit at 856-225-5127. Maybe she approached somebody else with this, right? Okay, so crazy, people's problem solvings. You know, it's like, move on. It's a breakup. He's really not that into you. I really don't know what's wrong with people, you know. He's really not that into you, hon. You have to move on, okay? Murder's not the option. Murder's not the answer. You're not going to, what is that going to do? You're not going to be with him anyway. And then you bring his daughter into it? Come on. He's really not that into you. Just leave it alone and move on. Man, people are just, they would talk about the level of obsession with someone, but is it, and there's a lot of mental illness. Look at the people that are obsessed with people on YouTube that they can't stop talking about 5, 6, 4 years down the line. Is it any wonder? And they're trying to have people hurt. They're trying to have people harmed. They're trying to have people's families harmed. Okay? And this is all justifiable, and people call it good fun to call for this, to call for people to be stalked and have people blatantly admit they're driving by someone's house. Do you guys even understand that? And this is okay. Someone on here who lives in the Bronx and Queens, I don't know where now because there was a house fire, blatantly admitted she has driven past my house multiple times. Multiple times. That's stalking. I live on a private lake where it is clearly labeled, if you're not a property owner, you're not to trespass to come in here. This person has clearly said she has driven by, I have the screenshots of it, driven by my home multiple times, driven by my son's restaurant multiple times, said she got out and took pictures. That's beyond stalking. And yet this seems okay, right? On YouTube, that's okay. It's sick. It's sickening. It really is. It's absolutely sickening. And they really fear no repercussion. That they think there's no repercussion for that. That nobody can find them when everyone knows her name because she's emailed me multiple times with her real name. And I have proof that she's driven by her own mouth, okay, by her own hand, that she has driven past my house multiple times and stalked my son. So yeah, maybe I should call the police, right? Because if we don't see something and do something, then we're just as guilty. And just sitting by and saying, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. No, it's something. And it's just people like this, like Diorio, right? She can't get over someone. To break up because it's broken, move on and get over it. That you're 5 years down the road still talking about people and obsessed with them and stalking them and their families and then talk about real life? Well, I think I've got some stuff to do tomorrow. So, yeah, it's about time, guys. And if you're sitting by and you just think stuff like that is drama and it's harmless, it's not harmless. And you shouldn't be sitting in chats and condoning it and thinking it's okay, because you wouldn't think it's okay if it was happening to you. And it's not okay. And enabling people with this serious mental illness that would do that, not good. Not good at all. You see something, say something. Someone says they're stalking someone that lives on a private lake and driving by and taking pictures. Yeah, this was all said. Okay, let's see now. And how easily they can do it. Interesting. So let's see. 8% think not guilty. That's crazy, but it's going to be guilty. Don't you worry about that one. I'm going to end that poll. And I'm going to do another poll. And let me just do something here. I think this is okay. Look, I'm in New York City and I have driven back and forth past her house numerous times in one day. There's no reason why she can't take a day trip to the beach every weekend if she wanted to. Do you think that's normal behavior? And that's not the only post, okay? There's posts about going by my son's restaurant and how easily she can get out of her car and take pictures there. Do you think this is okay? Look, I'm in New York City and I have driven back and forth past her house numerous times in one day. Numerous times on a private lake that clearly states only property owners, no trespassing, private lake, residents only. And even if it wasn't a private lake, this with having no business here to drive past my home numerous times in one day, and the level of obsession. She's wondering when I can take my kids to the beach, as if it's any bit of her business about when my kids are going to the beach and who they're going to the beach with. My children are of none of her concern. And the fact that she thinks they are is beyond obsessed. I think I've got something to do tomorrow. And there's more. I have the stuff on what she said about my son, you know, but they don't go real life, right? Nope. Nope. I've got so many screenshots in here, but trying to pull up the ones that she said about my son. Which is just crazy. If you unbelievable, right? Look, I'm in New York City, and I have driven back and forth past her house numerous times in one day. There's no reason why she can't. What in the world? What in the world? Oh. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting, right? Very interesting. And yet people seem to have no problem with that. People in those chats, you know? If it was done to them, of course it would be oh boy. That's crazy stalking, right, little lady? Absolutely crazy stalking. Oh, they came over here to vote in the poll. Thanks for voting in the poll, guys. 20% of them came over here to vote in the poll. I think police will agree that that's stalking, wouldn't you? Hi everyone, just got here. The poll keeps disappearing when I try to scroll up. Oh, really? I don't know why. Night, Al. They didn't die, Al. It was it was murder for hire. She is attempted murder. So 20% of them came over here to vote in the poll. Thanks for the views and the engagement, guys. It's not really going to make much of a difference. But yeah, 80% agree that's stalking. The other 20% we know where they're from. Okay, let's do the word cookies. Oh, they watch every word, lowlighty. Every word. As Howard Stern said, the haters watch way more than the fans. And it's true. They're the ones that a lot of them have a really, really, really bad mental health obsession. And they can't stop. And that's why people are doing the kind of crap that they're doing. They can't move on. He's really not that into you. Move on. Find another boyfriend. You don't kill your boyfriend because he's not into you. A lot of really serious mental health needed. Bye-bye. Oh, shoot. What's wrong with this? Is it the other way? Hey Victoria, how are you? Yay! Yay! We did the daily puzzle. Why is it telling us to do the daily puzzle again? We can't do the daily puzzle again, but we can. Sector, okay, good, heart. Sector, yeah, it's a good one. That's a good bingo. That's a good bingo. That was a word, but it wasn't there. Corset. we go. You need your glasses? We got a special level on this one. I hope we didn't lose it. Don't get very many. Okay, so this means that everyone is going to have an O in it. Okay. Oh, shoot. Hold on for a minute. Hold on a minute, I want to scan a camera for a second. Snowing outside. I wanted to make sure that's what was going on out there. Okay. I heard something. It's the snow. Would you believe it? We're having snow right now. So sorry. Hi, Murder of Crows. How are you? Okay, let's finish this now. We do cruise. I think it that one in there automatically. I think so. Hey, Scooter. Scooter's in the puzzle tonight. Oh, I hope you're here, Scooter, watching your name in the puzzle tonight. Wow, no snow here. Yeah, autumn's there. Oh, we're having, isn't that crazy? We should be having spring, but instead we're having ridiculous snow. Torso, okay. Very good, thank you there. Murder of Crows. Oh my gosh, stupid keyboard just melted on me. Okay, let's see what you guys have got. Okay, well, they have all of those. What do you got? We have C. Oversee, I've got already. Never, towards, okay. What is it? Servo? Servo? Oh, and serve, right? Yeah. That's good. Servo. Servo. Okay. We did verse. How about veers? Okay. How about very windy. Zephyr. Okay. And then there, we did it. We did it. Okay. Let's try Ringo. Put a ring on it. groin, okay. It's just me. You know, where's Muffy? Muffy, not Vampire Slayer, Muffy something Slayer. Where's she been? Miss you, Muffy. Origin, that's good. Very good. Oh, okay, Murder of Crows and Heart. Very good. Wondering what that was. Oh, I'm gonna have to call it a night because I have some unexpected business to take care of in the morning. But, and I want to try to get some packing done, so I will see you guys later on. God bless and prayers, and be good. Don't be a stalker. Love you guys. God bless. Prayers.